little bit crazy. Let's get a 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 little bit crazy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Je Vaughn Show. I am your host, Maurice. Today I'll be Je Vaughn. Today I'm Je Vaughn, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. I have a guest on the show today that is going to make you hungry. And the fact that I start interviews hungry already, this is going to be an extra special treat. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw him on High on the Hog on Netflix. And we're going to go ahead and bring him in so that we can get high on his knowledge. His name is Adrian Miller. How are you doing, Mr. Miller?
I'm good. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Now, this show, we normally have singers and musicians and all these artsy people, but there is an arts, a craft, if you will, in making people full. So before we get into all of that, I need you to tell the people, who is Adrian Miller?
So I'm the soul food scholar. My tagline is dropping knowledge like hot biscuits. And Now this is going to immediately lose me all street cred on soul food, barbecue, and everything. I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. But Let me win you back. I know. Let me win you back. I have Southern parents. My mom from Chattanooga, Tennessee. My dad's from Helena, Arkansas. So these are the food traditions I grew up on. So I'm a recovering attorney, a former politico. I worked in the White House, and I've been lately writing books on food history, African-American food history.
And we have such a great and rich history. So I want to just dive right into the hog. I believe that when we came out of the old times of slavery, where they just gave us scraps and the leftovers, that when we got freed, we should have no longer had to eat chitlins. I'm sorry, chitterlings. Help win me. Why should we still be dining on chitlins?
Yeah, so I'm glad you went to that example. So I think chitlins are probably the poster child for what supposedly is wrong with soul food. But man, chitlins has a very interesting history. So a lot of cultures around the world eat innards or guts, and people were doing that in West Africa. And so, it just so happens that Europeans were doing it with pigs, but man, high-end rich Europeans were eating chitlins in the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. In fact, if you go to some of the oldest cookbooks, they're chitlin recipes.
What?
Yeah, man. And so, so part of that shows the complexity of soul food. And, I have a brother who makes chitlins very well. He cleans them, and they're delicious. So I think that's why we should still eat chitlins. I know. I don't eat them all the time. I only have them a couple times a year, pretty much Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. But yeah, no, chitlins, man, that was prestige food, believe it or not.
So this was something that I always assumed that it was something that it was just the last thing. We was hungry and starving, and there's nothing else to go to. Here's the chitlins.
Yes.
So you're saying that this was something that the Europeans actually embraced. Was it made with something else? Was it made with oysters and caviar? I mean, what?
It's just the chitlins and some spices. And in fact, if you go back and look at narratives from enslaved people, there are examples where they're saying their slaveholder wanted chitlins. And there's an instance, I remember this clearly, of reading the narrator of the oral history of an enslaved cook who said her slaveholder beat her if she didn't make the chitlins good enough for him.
Wow.
So a lot of white people eat chitlins. They may not say it, but a lot of white people eat chitlins.
That's fascinating. And I guess it goes to the other dynamic, which was something that was in the Netflix special, The High on the Hog, about oysters. I've never had an oyster. I can't in my brain get past what I assume is the texture of oysters, right? So convince me. I guess this is the Adrian Miller convinces Je Vaughn of stuff conversation. Convince me of oysters.
Man, oysters are delicious. Now I understand you do have to get past the texture, but man, if you like seafood at all, just the taste of oysters, the brininess of the wherever they lived, man, it's just a unique taste. You can put a little hot sauce on there, maybe some horseradish, just to smooth it out a little bit. But man, it's delicious stuff. And the oysters are a rich part of African American food history, especially along these coastal areas, man. I mean, there are a lot of Black oystermen who made a great living. And some of the great figures of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries were oyster people. There's a guy named the Downing family, got rich off running oyster restaurants in the New York City area. So yeah, that's a part of our history, man. And it's delicious. It's like chitlins. If you can get somebody who knows what they're doing, shucks them well, season them well, whatever. And a lot of times oysters are just not seasoned. And it's delicious stuff. I don't know if I'm convincing you, but man, you just need to try one.
So I've never had either. I've never had chitlins. I've never had oysters. I couldn't get past the smell in my grandmother's kitchen of the chitlins. And like I said, it's just a texture thing for the oysters. But I've made a commitment to try new things in this new year of 2021. So because of you, and I'm going to edit it back into this interview, I'm going to try it, and then I'll give my review from there. So let's talk about stuff that I actually do like. And I promise you, like when it got confirmed that you were coming on, I got excited because I saw High on the Hog, the show that you were featured on, and it brought back 1,800 questions. So when it comes to soul food, though, because you are like the historian of soul food, what is your go-to? What does Mr. Miller on a Sunday at his mama's house want to eat as a meal?
Man, so I love whole fried catfish, bone in. I love whole fried fish. And then I love mustard and turnip greens with some smoked turkey and some onion, red pepper, and some garlic. And then I love black-eyed peas with ham hocks, smoked ham hocks, again with some onion, red pepper, and garlic. And then some nice cornbread, man, a nice buttermilk cornbread. And then a red drink, that to me, we can negotiate dessert, but that's right. My go-to, man. Fried fish, especially bone in, greens and black-eyed peas and some cornbread, man. I love it.
Now, is it hot water cornbread or Jiffy? Is Jiffy part of the staple of the soul food community now?
Oh, it is definitely. And, given people's schedules and stuff, I'm not going to be mad at you if you break out a Jiffy box. And I like the taste of Jiffy. I make it from scratch. So, yeah. Now, I'm very impressed that you mentioned hot water cornbread, man. And not a lot of people know about that. That's a dying art, actually.
It really is.
Yeah. I usually make it from scratch and do it in a cast iron skillet. So you're going to get a nice wedge if you come to my crib for dinner.
Are you still in Houston or are you back on the East Coast?
Actually, I'm back in Denver. Right now, I'm in Los Angeles on an event, but I'll be going back to Denver tomorrow. Okay,
because I saw in the episode, I think you were in Houston, and then I read somewhere that you were out in the Carolinas, I believe, at some point as well. Yeah. But now you're back in Denver, and it just so happens that I'll be going to Denver soon because they've got mountains, and I really want to learn how to roll down one without being on my butt. So
yeah, so look, I have to tell you, I can't help you with that because I am not outdoorsy. Even though I grew up in Colorado, man, I don't need to be anywhere where animals can eat on me. So I could hook you up with some people that can help you out with that. But I'll take care of you while you're in the city. Let's just put it that way.
That all I want is the food. I can learn how to fall by myself, but if I can get a good meal, then I'm all about it. Again, 1,400 questions. Nope, it was 1,800 questions came through my head. So I'm going to go back a little bit to the episode where they were talking about the cooks in the White House.
Yeah.
How are there no pictures, no drawings, no nothing of those of Hercules and the other young man whose name at the moment I'm
James Hemings.
Yes.
James Hemings. Yeah, man. So it's just part of our history, right? We weren't afforded humanity. So why would anybody chronicle these people? There was a painting for a long time that people believed was Hercules, but art historians have proved that it's not. And I wish they had figured that out before I put the brother on the cover of my book, The President's Kitchen Cabinet. But, you live with these things as they happen. But yeah, we have no drawings of any of Hemings enslaved people until later. There was one guy a couple decades later who we have a photograph of him. But other than that, they're just not chronicled at all because they weren't afforded humanity. It's actually even interesting that we know their names because a lot of times they wouldn't even mention people's names.
And with the one young man that was taken to France with the president,
James Hemings,
right, and learn the recipes and things like that. Is there a strong connection between French food and soul food?
Oh, absolutely. Now, the reason I've always been interested in writing about that, but I just don't know enough about French cuisine. I'm not classically trained to trace the culinary DNA in soul food. But much like James Hemings, a lot of slaveholders actually had their cooks apprentice under French chefs because in the 1800s, especially, French food was the dominant cuisine. And so if you were going to be considered classy and a great entertainer, you had to have, serve French food. And so they had their cooks trained under that. And so I've seen people talk about French influences this way. Are you familiar with something called spoon bread?
No.
Okay, so spoon bread is basically a type of cornbread. It's a cornbread souffle. So that's one kind of French influence. Some people have talked about the ways that some people make black eyed peas is very similar to cassoulet. So there are imprints there. I just don't know enough about French food to track that. But yeah, no, there's definitely an influence.
And I'm thinking about Louisiana and French Quarters when I was there, and things like gumbo. Is gumbo and the roux, things like that, is that French, and is that considered soul food as well?
Yeah, so I consider the food of Louisiana something different. It's related, but I think Creole food has its own vibe. So I separated that out. But yeah, it's strong in Creole. The French influence is strong in Creole. And it's really a combination of stuff. So like, for instance, gumbo, to me, that's a West African stew transported to the Americas. And then people riffed off that and added French elements. So yeah, certainly a roux is something that's French, because you don't really see that in West African cooking. But then you add the okra and all the other stuff, because a lot of West African stews, would combine meat and vegetables. Often the vegetables were the star of the dish. And with some types of okra, you could definitely say that. I don't know if you've ever had, gumbo. I don't know if you've ever had green gumbo, which is heavily based. Oh yeah, man, it's just wonderful. Imagine having 7 to 13 different types of greens all cooked together, and then adding some meat and other stuff and seasoning to that. Man, that's just delicious.
Ooh. I told you we were going to get hungry when we got into this interview, because this is all sounding delicious. I got so many food questions, and this is coming from a guy who wants to be a foodie but just doesn't like a lot of food, like textures and stuff like that. And I only know like the way that my mama makes it. Was it hard for you to get out of the food that you were raised on, and then being able to still appreciate people who made it different, or different seasonings, different styles?
Yeah, no, it wasn't hard at all, man, because that fascinates me. The way that people take something in common and then it plays out differently. And I just think that's interesting. And so that's often what fuels me when I do my food writing and food research. I'm just saying, okay, starts in some place in the world, shows up in this place, and then it goes to different parts. So how does that play out? Because to me, a lot of the African-American food story is about migration. A lot of it forced, right? But at some point, when Black people chose to go to different places just for better opportunities, they often got to the new place and tried to recreate home. And if you can do it with the exact same foods that you had back home, you do. But often you have to substitute new ingredients. You're meeting new people. You're looking at what they do. You're incorporating that. And so it's just really fascinating to see how this food in the Deep South plays out in different parts of the U.S. I just find that fascinating. And then even going back, how the foods of West Africa play out in the Americas, in North America, in the Caribbean, Latin America, South America. You see a lot of commonalities, but things are different. And I just love that difference.
And I can definitely appreciate your appreciation of those differences. But have you ever gone to a spot where the people were just like, oh my God, this right here is going to be the it. And you get it and you're like, what am I eating?
Yep. That has happened several times. Yep. And so I double back and I'm like, okay, am I missing something? What's up with that? But at some point, we just have different palates, right? And this, as the kids say, that don't hit right, and that's what happens sometimes.
So you told me about your favorite meal. Who's your favorite person to cook the meal? Is it still a family member? Is it yourself? Like if this is what you want, then this is what you're going to cook?
Yeah. So, I kind of go dish by dish, and that may be the same thing in your family, right? Somebody is really known for a few things, right? And so you want that person to cook that. So if I could bring back all the people in my life now and those who have passed on, man, definitely would want my mom cooking a lot of that stuff. She died about 5 years ago. but she's probably the strongest culinary influence. And she was a great cook. She not only could she make Southern food, soul food, but she could cook food from other cultures. In fact, she was the griller in chief in my family. She was the main barbecue person. So yeah, my mom had some skills, man.
Oh man, and it's interesting how, like, you about the men that take on the grilling, and it's like a man thing to grill, and then there's your mama right there taking care of the business, huh?
Yeah, man. And as I was interviewing people for my recent book on barbecue, I asked people about that. Like, who was the person who did the barbecue? And a lot of times they would say their mom and their auntie or somebody like that was the main person. And then going back through history, I would look at newspaper articles of dudes who started restaurants, and they would say, well, yeah, that's my grandmom's recipe and things like that. So even though barbecue is presented as this male thing, man, in our community, that's just not the case. I mean, sisters have been grilling it for themselves for a long time. And in fact, in my book, I tell stories about historical figures. I found a story about an enslaved woman named Marie Jean in Arkansas in 1840s. And man, she was running a barbecue in Pine Bluff, Arkansas in 1840. And the newspaper wrote about her doing that. So picture that, man. Enslaved woman, African-American, telling dudes what to do in 1840s Arkansas. I know. Isn't that pretty sweet?
Our history and our culture is so rich. And that's why I'm glad that there's someone like you who's writing and telling those stories of our culture and of our influence in just food in general, both past, present, and even coming up in the future. What is your favorite story to tell, and throughout the books that you've written, just in regards to food and the history of food?
Wow. So I think my favorite story to tell is the story of Hercules, who was George Washington's enslaved cook. He's purchased as a 19-year-old. So he was actually owned by somebody else. And the Washingtons take him, and he was a boat ferryman. And for whatever reason, they transfer him to the kitchen and have him apprentice under their cook, an enslaved African-American woman named Old Doll, who was quite senior at the point that Hercules starts to apprentice under her. And so when Washington becomes president, the nation's capital was in Philadelphia because DC was being built. And Washington had a white woman cooking for him, but I guess her food was nasty because she got fired. And so he taps Hercules and brings him to Philadelphia. And the interesting thing is Philadelphia in Pennsylvania had this law that if you were an enslaved person on Pennsylvania soil for 6 months or longer, you're automatically freed. So what Washington did to get around this is that every 6 months, right around the time the deadline was approaching, he would take all of the enslaved people working for him in Philadelphia and take them out of state. And then bring him back to start the clock over again. He does this throughout his presidency. But Hercules is afforded luxuries. He gets to walk around town after his shift is over. He got to sell leftovers out of the presidential kitchen, made a couple $1,000 doing that. So that's how good that brother's cooking was, right? His leftovers, a couple thousand. But then he eventually successfully escapes from Washington. So even though he was renowned and had all of this accolades, right, he wanted his freedom. And he disappeared to history, but now thanks to some crack researchers, we found out that he made his way to Manhattan and was a chef in Manhattan and then died in May of 1812. And they believe they know where his body is. And so they're trying to just confirm that and then put a historical marker there so he's not lost to history.
Wow. And I think that is such a fascinating story. And just the fact that he was able to get free and still continue to do what he loved to do is again, just a testament to our strength in our heritage. So tell us a little bit more about the first book and why you decided to write it, and then how it brought about the newest book that you're releasing right now.
Yeah. So the first book, the short answer as to why I decided to write it is unemployment. So I was working in the Clinton White House, and I ended my stint there. I worked on something called the Initiative for One America, a racial reconciliation thing. And then at that time of my life, I wanted to be the senator from Colorado. So I wanted to go back home, start my political career. But man, the job market was really slow. And I was in DC just trying to work it out. And I ended up watching a lot of daytime television. I'm not even going to tell you what shows. And in the depth of my life,
we already know it.
you know, yeah. 2001. You can probably figure out the shifts. And in the depth of my depravity, I said, you know what? I should read something. Went to a local bookstore, found this book on the history of Southern food, and the author wrote, "The tribute to Black achievement in American cookery has yet to be written." Man, when I read that, I was like, okay. So I contacted the author and I just said, hey, you wrote this 14 years ago, because the book was out 14 years old. And, do you still think this is true? And he said, yeah, for the most part, nobody's taken on the full story. So I just started researching. I read 3,500 narratives of formerly enslaved people. I read about 500 cookbooks, talked to hundreds of people, read thousands of articles. And then because I care about my craft so much, I ate my way through the country and went to 150 restaurants, 35 cities, and 15 states. And so that led to my book, Soul Food, because after doing all that research, man, I had enough material to write 5 books. So I thought, let me just focus on soul food. And so the way I created that book is I created a representative soul food meal. I write a chapter about every part of the meal, explain what it is, how it gets on the soul food plate, what it means for the culture. And in that initial research for the soul food book, that set up the stories for the President's Kitchen Cabinet about the presidential chefs, and then also my latest book on African-American barbecue. So really it was that initial research that really got me going on all of that.
And so, and thinking about those meals when you ate your way through the country, is there one meal in particular, one state, one location, one city where you still have fond memories of like, man, I cannot wait to get back there?
Yeah, unfortunately, the place just closed, maybe because of the pandemic, but it was called Bully's Soul Food in Jackson, Mississippi. And man, it's the kind of place where right off the main dining room, there was a table and somebody would come out and periodically strip greens and peel sweet potatoes. And I just remember having really fresh food. And the one thing I really remember is a blackberry cobbler. Have you ever had a blackberry cobbler?
I have not.
Man, if you like cobbler, especially peach cobbler, a blackberry cobbler is transcendent. I mean, it's not easy to find because a lot of people don't make it. But man, that is some good eating.
I know that we do different delicacies, and you can make anything any certain way and make it unique in your own. Should we be putting shrimp in the potato salad?
Now, man, normally I'm a very understanding person and very expansive, but man, we got to draw some lines. So shrimp, raisins, we just got to draw some lines at some point. I think I've seen that video and it cracks me up. They're all like kind of whispering each other. That is hilarious, man. And the other video series I love is when Black women are tasting other people's food and just commenting on it. Those are hilarious, man.
Mm-hmm. So for the record, the historian has defined that we cannot put shrimp. We should not put shrimp in a potato salad.
Yeah, and if you do, just call it something else. Don't call it potato salad. Give it another name so people don't get it twisted. That's my opinion.
Ribs, are we falling off the bone, or should we have a little tug to it?
Yeah, no, we should have a little tug. So, it is overcooked. If it gets to the point where it's falling off the bone, it's overcooked. Now, it could still taste good, but it is overcooked. And so, yeah, most rib aficionados, I consider myself one, would say that, yeah, you want to have a little bit of tug. And that when you eat a rib, that the bone or the meat should come off cleanly, right? But the rest of it should stay. And that, and the seasoning and all that kind of stuff. But that usually means it's well cooked. But yeah, I have to say it is overcooked if it's falling off the bone. But so many people view that as a great thing because what that's saying is that the meat's tender, right? And so people always mean it as a compliment. And, I just tell people, okay, look, you can like it that way. Just don't say that around me, if that's cool. Give some other descriptors, but you don't have to say that around me.
And then, so my last question to you then is 4th of July. We just had it. It happened to have been my birthday. Did you get a good meal, a good barbecue on the 4th? Where was it? And then are there any compliments that you're giving to the chef?
Yeah. So this is going to sound weird, but I did the cooking. So my 82-year-old father has officially handed over the grill to me. So this is a big moment, right? Because he's like, hey, man, this is a lot of work. Y'all need to start doing this now. And I'm like, all right. So, man, he had a brisket. So I had to make my first brisket. So in addition to ribs, chicken, and hot links, that's our standard kind of meat choices. I did the brisket. So my ribs are on point, and so is the chicken and sausage. The brisket came out a little bit dry, but it had great flavor and everything. And this is my first effort. So I think I know what to do next time. But yeah, man. So it was at my dad's house, cooking on a double oil drum smoker. So really old school. None of these gadgets, you know, the pellets and all that. None of that stuff. And then the potato salad, coleslaw, and some bread. And yeah, that's how we set it up. And some red drink. We like having red drink.
We love our red drink, and it ain't even got to be Kool-Aid too. Just some red drink with throw in some lemonade, lemon juice in there.
Oh man, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God, I can't wait for this interview to be over so I can go eat. Right there, my kitchen is right there too, and especially the mac and cheese recipe. I'm excited about that. Before I let you go, I need to know if I should be pulling my black card. I do not like hot links. I do not like dark meat, and I do not like fatty meat. So people keep saying the thigh, JeVaughn, it's the chicken thigh that's the killer, you know. And I'm all about the breast and the wing. I can't stand the chicken thigh. I don't do well with brisket because it's so fatty. A steak, if it has way too much marble, no, you can keep that. What's wrong with me, Doc? Please help educate me. Bring me back to where I can get my black card back. What am I missing? Why is it that fat, which is part of our history, is just so I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, obviously there's been some trauma in your life. And so maybe we need to talk offline about this. But look, man, there's room in the cookout for everyone. So I'm not going to shun you, brother. You know, you just have different tastes. And you know, if anybody asks me about you, I'm going to say, that's just a different kind of brother, man. Brother.
I get in trouble for the hot links all the time. I just can I just get a Polish sausage or just give me a hot dog?
So is it about the spice? Is that what it is?
I just never liked hot links. The hot links, but the thing that's bothering me the most, Mr. Miller, is my just total disapproval of thighs. And especially with there being a wing shortage and like Wingstop is now Thigh Stop and all this other stuff. No, I don't want no thighs. No, keep your thighs.
I love thighs, man. Yeah, no, that I love thighs. Love them.
Okay, so
because it's just, you know, that dark meat is juicy. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I gotta figure out my fat intake then, because I think it just has to do with the fat that I'm messing up on. Okay. Because I just say cut off, cook it until the fat is totally gone, and then I got it. Mr. Miller, I agree. I appreciate you coming on the show and being crazy with me for 30 minutes. And so people can right now go out to Amazon and to everywhere else, Barnes & Noble, where books are sold. Can you please tell them the name of the book, how to get the book?
Yeah, so and you can also get it directly from me if you want an autographed copy. So you can go to soulfoodscholar.com and there's a shop feature in the navigation bar. You can get the books, and I'm happy to sign them any way you want. So if you want me to sign it, hey, Adrian, you know, just say I couldn't have done this without you. I'm happy to do that. But my books are Soul Food, The Surprising Story of an American Cuisine. Second book is The President's Kitchen Cabinet. And then my third book is Black Smoke, African Americans in the United States of Barbecue.
It's that Black Smoke book that I eat. I mean, listen, all the books are great, but that Black Smoke book, go get it, because I got mine coming in the mail. I'm looking forward to it because I want to be a better barbecuer. I got my little $30 Walmart grill and my Kingsford's charcoal, and I think that it's supposed to be like so hot that it's white. And then I'm just gonna learn, and I'm gonna learn through your work and through your education and the knowledge that you're presenting to us, Mr. Miller. High on the Hog, these great book series. Thank you so much for joining the Je Vaughn Show today and just getting us to where we now know definitively that my black card has needed to be revoked. Thank you, Mr. Miller. We really appreciate you. Thank you to everyone who watched the show today and that's going to watch it on the replay when we do all of our add-ins, and you know how we do and put it up on all of our 50 networks where we are now. So make sure that you guys go check out the book. Go check out High on the Hog if you didn't see it on Netflix. And please, please, please go to social media. Adrian Miller, he's there. He's responsive. So if you've got questions, he's got answers. Go talk to him today. On behalf of Dr. Anisha Thompson, editor-in-chief of Elevate Magazine, to our executive producer, what's the man's name? T.L. Holmes. Cut that out on the next edit. T.L. Holmes and everybody with Elevate Magazine. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.
Get a little bit